What up? What up? What up? Thank you so much for tuning in to the debut episode here of Backwards K Baseball. I am your host, Chris Asbrock, and I'm joined by my esteemed podcast side piece and co-host, Scott Kyser. Scott, my man, how are you doing on this amazing Monday night?
Not bad, not bad. Ready to talk some baseball, my friend. How's it going?
Hey, you know what? I can't complain. Cannot complain. So, this is the debut episode of Backwards K Baseball. Again, I am Chris Asbrock. I guess background real quick, before we get into it, I do stuff for Impact Sports Cincinnati. That is kind of like my, podcast / blog brand. You can check everything out at iscincy.com. But huge baseball guy, grew up playing baseball. Like I said, if you caught the my guest appearance last week with the guys from Brewed Sports, you saw that, when I had mentioned that, hey, like I said, I live and die with baseball, eat, sleep, drink it, breathe it, everything. Got friends in the game, grew up playing it, like I said, all that kind of stuff. And I just need an outlet to talk baseball. And I've got one here with Scott, and man, I couldn't be any more thankful to have this platform that we have here. So, Scott, before we get going, let's hear a little bit about yourself, my man.
Well, and those of you who have seen or heard me before on Brewed Sports, welcome to the newest addition to our little Brewed Sports family. This is, as Chris mentioned, Backwards K Baseball, and we're just going to talk ball, man. Chris and I have become good friends over the last couple years, and a lot of that has to do because of baseball. Our sons play Little League together. We coach on the same team. That's how we've gotten to know each other a lot. But, I mean, really, it's just our love of the game just kind of shined through, and every time we talked, it's about baseball, and every time we get real hyped up, it's about baseball. And so we figured, just like with Brewed Sports and me and Mike, hey, why the hell don't we sit down and record our thoughts and talk about ball on camera? So we figure we can do it just as good as any other idiots out there. Why not give it a shot? So here we are. We're glad you guys can be along for the ride. We are going to talk, baseball at all levels. Chris is more, he's more all ball. It doesn't matter what level it is. I'm more of a pro guy, and I dabble in, the college game a little bit, but Chris is the go-to on those sorts of things more, and especially at a more local level. But again, we both love baseball so much that it doesn't really matter as long as it's baseball being played. I mean, I can talk about it at any level, but where I follow is mostly pro. So we're gonna give you a little bit of taste of everything. Not much super structured, but we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have fun. Going to hit you with some of the news and insight, but a lot of times, if you've watched Brewed Sports, we're just going to sit around and bullshit. So hope you guys enjoy, and like I said, we're here to have a good time and talk ball.
Like I said, and I've been saying it all along, come for the jackassery, stay for the baseball talk, man. That's what this is all about. So let's get into that jackassery here. MLB offseason. So Major League Baseball is, I would say, one of the best sports, let me rephrase that, best professional sports when it comes to the offseason and keeping their fan base involved at all times. And there's nothing better after the baseball season ends. A couple weeks after that, you've got the winter meetings. And that is just an incredible time. Well, we thought it was going to be incredible this year, but it turned out to be a big dud, which we will get into here in a little bit. But MLB offseason, I mean, there was so much hype for the big-name free agents out there. You had Ohtani, you had Yoshi, you had, obviously, Bellinger, you had J.D. Martinez, Jordan Montgomery, Blake Snell. There's a ton of guys out there that I'm, obviously, missing. But this is the time now leading up to it. Again, this is March 4th. We are full-blown in the swing of things in spring training, and there are still some guys that are available. But in terms of the the free agents that have signed, I mean, you saw Shohei Ohtani go to the Dodgers. That was let's be real. It was expected. Now I'm wearing the Blue Jays hoodie here. If you saw me on Craft Brewed Sports, like I said last week, it came out. Obviously, I'm a big Reds fan here in Cincinnati, but huge Jays fan as well. Ohtani to the Jays. That was the train wreck situation that one after Saturday afternoon where, oh God, Ohtani's, he's on a flight headed to Toronto. And then it was just, it went sideways just like that to where he signs with the Dodgers for $700 million, in a contract that is all deferred. So then you have guys like Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who signs with the Dodgers as well. Just the big money that has been thrown around in terms of the offseason. And we had, like I said, there's a bunch of the big guys that have signed, bunch of guys out there that have not signed yet. Scott, what are your thoughts so far on it's not really the offseason now, but what we saw just, literally before, spring training kicked off?
It was a long off season, but that's because all baseball off seasons are long to me. It was pretty interesting the way things started. We had the Ohtani stuff, as you mentioned. There was all sorts of interest this year, and not only Ohtani, but also all of the imports coming over from both Korea and Japan and whatnot. A lot of names thrown around, but Yamamoto and Shohei were the biggest names to be out there, and both ended up on the same team. But it was a weird offseason in that everything seemed like it was going to be exciting, got started really quickly, and then we hit this wall. And those two signed, other things kind of trickled in, and then we sat here for the last month or so watching as 4 of the bigger names on this free agent class sat without jobs. In fact, up until just a couple of days ago with Matt Chapman, there were 4 of them that didn't look like maybe they'd have a job before the start of the season. So now we're down to 3, and they all happen to be Boras clients. And if you know anything about professional baseball and follow the game, then you know who Scott Boras is. And it's safe to say that Chris and I aren't huge fans of Scott Boras, putting it lightly. But his guys are still sitting out there around now. Today, the reports that he's out there saying that teams are getting desperate and that teams have called and checked in on his guys. We'll see. But I'm glad the off season's over. I don't particularly care whether or not the rest of the guys that Boras represents end up on a team, but that's sometimes how it goes. I mean, eventually these guys will all be playing baseball, but when that happens, not too much of a concern of mine because they're not going to end up on the Braves, and that's my team. So I don't know. I kind of care less about them.
Well, I see now that I understand. So again, you were talking about Matt Chapman. Now, Chapman was the best third baseman available. Now we're going to talk about the Boras clients here. There was a tweet that came out from Dan Clark just the other day. I'm going to read it here. And this is the 4 big Boras clients. So Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, and JD Martinez. So again, Scott and I, we truly enjoy the fact that Scott Boras has taken L's on this. Now, when it comes to, I'm going to kind of go off, a little bit here on a tangent before I address this tweet. But Scott Boras is as good of a job as he does at getting his guys paid, which he did. I want to say, was it 2 years ago where he alone had, it was like almost $1 billion in clients or something like that just a couple years ago or something along those lines. But he is what's bad for baseball. Now, I say that because if you are a football fan, you remember Drew Rosenhaus. Drew Rosenhaus, before, I would say, last decade, he was an absolute piece of trash agent. Nobody wanted to work with Drew. And I think Drew realized that, and I got to give Drew Rosenhaus props because you don't hear about him anymore. So, Drew Rosenhaus, again, would cause all these problems for these teams, again, where nobody wanted to work with him and take on his clients. Now, it seems like that might be the kind of what we're seeing here with Scott Boras. Boras is known to he will flat out hold his guys out until the All-Star break. He could care less. He wants his guys to get paid. Scott Boras also has to realize he works for the player. That's what it comes down to. It's not the other way around. And that's what is seemingly the issue here. He works for the players. And that's where also the players, depending on the situation, they need to step up and say, Scott, get me signed. It's March 4th. We are weeks into spring training. We will have real baseball coming up in like 25 days, where opening day it's that close. Come on, get me signed. Like that also has to happen here. But, again, Boras is notorious for overvaluing his clients. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but when you're taking L's like he has so far this offseason, Matt Chapman, for example, just signed with the Giants for $54 million. He was seeking 150 plus this offseason. Now, me being a Jays fan, dude wasn't worth 150 plus. And he declined $100+ million offer from the Jays right at the beginning of the offseason. He turned that down. And now look at it. That's the madness that we see from Boras' client, Cody Bellinger, seeking $200+ million. Signs for $80 million with the Cubs. Even the Cubs were like, nah, we're good. We're not going to touch it. And he's got Blake Snell out there now who's seeking $300+ million for Blake Snell. Blake Snell has had 2 good seasons. And that's it. And granted, he won the Cy Young those 2 years, but you never know what you're going to get from Blake Snell. So is that dude worth $300 million? Not a chance. He declined $168 million from the Yankees. He's still out there.
I was going to just say that I have a long-standing hateful relationship with Scott Boras, mostly because, as you mentioned, similar to Rosenhaus, that they make it about themselves. They put themselves above the game, and I get it. I've always wanted players to be paid by these organizations. I'm not a fan of organizations cheaping out on the players and not giving them what they deserve. But there's also got to be this middle ground where the players have to realize their value and understand their worth. And as you mentioned, it's up to them and to a certain degree to make sure that their agent knows, like, hey, look, I want to play baseball. And if you're out to get your money, that's fine. But understand that teams just don't have to deal with you if they don't want to. And I think that's what we've seen over the past 4 months is that teams and organizations finally got to the point. And I think statistics and data is such that it got to the point that you can look at all these things and not be fooled by the Cy Young trophies that Blake Snell has in his hardware case or any of the accolades that these guys get on an individual level, because once you start breaking things down and you go underneath the hood, these guys aren't worth the money that they're asking for. And so while that may have worked at a time when we didn't have analytics and we didn't have all the stats that we do now, it's time for Scott to figure things out, to make sure that because this offseason, I don't think that it's necessarily going to tarnish his reputation amongst players for the most part. But there's got to be some players that are out there watching this all unfold and maybe pausing to themselves if they're thinking about changing representation and they were considering Scott Boras, or they're coming into the league and they, are seeing what's going on. It would give me hesitation. I know he's got a long track record and everything's been good for the most part, but if teams are going to stop just, going to a certain point with him or with his agents, it's going to start costing these guys.
1,000%. And as a player, like you said, you're all for these guys getting paid. Again, Scott, you work for the player. So these guys, again, have to, they've also got to step up and say something as well because, it's, again, he's got that reputation for, like I said, of getting his guys paid. But if it's going to cost me half of a season and then I'm going to end up taking a ton less, it's just, to me, it's not worth it. And that's the problem there. And, and Scott doesn't seem to realize that. And you said it perfect that he does. It's all about him, and it's not. I mean, he makes it all about him, where he's holding court, at the winter meetings. I sent you that picture of the media scrum around him, and you were just like, what a total douche. And I was like, yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, because again, it's not about, or it shouldn't be about Scott Boras, but every time you turn around, that's the headline. The Boras 4, they call him, and his name tends to be more well known just to some average baseball fans than some of his own clients. I mean, he's got tons of clients across the sport, and you wouldn't even know, but you know who Scott Boras is.
Exactly. And it sucks for some of these guys because a guy like Blake Snell, as a pitcher, he needs to be in camp. I mean, plain and simple, dude's got to be in camp. And
we got people chiming in the comments. Matt Barr saying that agents in baseball screw their clients way more often than any other sport. Eventually, teams turn off the spigot. But as fans, if your team cheaps out on players, where are you going to go?
Well played, Matthew. I like that. Where are you going to go?
Which is a very good point.
And that's true, though.
Still, I'm kind of glad that teams are kind of taking a hard stance on these guys. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's a team sport, and no matter how good his clients may be, they're not going to win a championship by themselves. And in this instance, with these 4 specific guys, when we're talking about Chapman, Bellinger, Snell, and Montgomery, they're not at the highest end of the profession. Like, they're B and C tier guys as far as like superstar level. And yes, they will help you win games. Yes, they're good players. But I think that's part of the hesitation is that they're not paying. Teams don't want to pay this money because this crop was weak. And after Ohtani and Yamamoto were off the market, where teams were like falling over themselves to pay money for those guys, I mean, why would you settle for some of these guys that are left over? Like, especially if you don't trust the data that you're seeing. So I'm kind of glad that the teams have wisened up. And in my case, I'm glad the Braves aren't in on any of these guys. I don't want to be worried about having to sign any of them. It's fine with me.
Yeah. And I mean, same with, here in Cincinnati too, the Reds, the moves the Reds made, phenomenal. And I mean, they did a great job of bringing in guys that get the job done. They don't have to go to the top part of the free agency market, and they didn't, and good on them. But a team like the Rangers, defending World Series champs, Montgomery, he needs to come back there. He's the perfect fit for Texas. He wants to go back. Make it happen. Like, it's not difficult. That's what I don't understand. And that's the frustrating part about it. Like, for example, to me, Cody Bellinger, perfect fit in Toronto. He was the perfect fit in Toronto. And, you look at what they did, they're like, well, we're not going to sit here and wait around and pay that much money for Cody Bellinger. Instead, they could have gotten for $80 million if that's what it was going to be. Matt Chapman would have been a perfect fit to come back there. But what did Toronto do? They pivoted and went with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Really? But, they turned off the spigot, like Matthew was saying in that comment. Like, that's what teams have to start doing. You got to put your foot down, to really show, an agent like Scott Boras, like, you know what, screw you. That's not how this works.
Although I'll ask, what the fuck are the Jays doing? What the hell is their offseason been? Because it's been kind of embarrassing when you look at the fact that they were thinking they were going to sign the biggest free agent of all time, and instead have sampled from the poo-poo platter like the rest of the offseason. They've done next to nothing. And I mean, you bring up Isaiah Kind-of-Falefla. That's like the biggest name that they brought in this offseason, which is kind of sad based on the fact that they were in the playoffs the last couple years. They seemingly were only a couple of pieces away. And now, like, what are they? Second, third, maybe even fourth best in that division?
I don't like your attitude. Like, we're not going to, for a first episode, we're not going to do this shit, man. We're not doing it.
I needed to mix things up just a little bit, man. It's getting too comfy in here.
You're right. I mean, now I'm a little fired up now.
I got to ask.
To answer your question?
I honestly, on a truthful note, the Blue Jays have had a very confusing offseason.
And they're owned by Rogers Communications, the largest communications, company in the freaking country of Canada, for God's sakes. They're one of the largest media conglomerates in the world. And you can't spend money. Now, going into the offseason, it was said that they had two budgets. They had a unicorn budget for Ohtani, where they were going to literally go all in. And then they had just a regular budget, which I don't even know if we're seeing the regular budget, to be honest with you. And that's what's puzzling. Another team that's really puzzling in terms of, before we, move on to the free agent part, the Seattle Mariners. What are they doing? A team that is like right there. Because let's be real, the American League West, to me, it's wide open still. Houston, yeah, they're going to be good. They're going to be there again. And you have the defending World Series champions in Texas. But, I mean, that's still a division that Seattle can rise up and take with the pitching staff they have. I mean, but their issue is the television revenue and all that gong show that we experienced, with the regional sports networks. I just, I don't get it, man. I truly don't get it.
Well, I mean, you said that we sat here and talk about the guys that are unsigned, but let's talk about the guys that are actually signed. I mean, look, I'm no Dodgers fan, and I could give two shits about what happens to the franchise or anything along those lines. But from just a exciting standpoint, like, I thought it was kind of awesome that Yamamoto and Ohtani ended up on the same team. Just the two of them. Like, again, the rest of the team I could care less. But I am curious to see how that dynamic plays out. I know we won't be seeing Ohtani pitch till next year because of the surgery. But I am super excited to see Yamamoto pitch, because the only time I've seen him pitch at all was in the World Baseball Classic, and it was so briefly I didn't really pay enough attention to fully appreciate how good of a pitcher he's supposed to be. So besides those two signings, are there any other signings that happened in this offseason that you're excited to see how it plays out for the new teams?
Yeah, I would say the one that, as much as I hate it because I don't like the Astros, the Josh Hader signing. That is an interesting one to me, to go to Houston, because now you move. Now I'm brain cramping on the closer. Yeah. You're moving him to the 8th inning because Hader won't go out of the 9th, and that's it. Like, what that does, I mean, because you have a year old, you have a Verlander who's another year older. I mean, they've got some sick talent on that team, obviously. It's the Houston Astros. But that Hader signing, to see, like, what if things don't go as well in the 9th inning? He blows a couple saves here and there. What does that do? Do you make the move and pulling him out and moving Presley back into the 9th inning?
No. You're paying Hader the money. He's going to be the closer. You ignore whatever happens. I mean, if for whatever reason,
shut the hell up then. Thanks. Appreciate it. All right.
I mean, if for whatever reason he has a streak like he did when he first got to San Diego and things kind of went south there for a little while, even the Padres didn't pull him out of the role. Like, you don't spend the money on the guy and then, I mean, it would have to go horrifically bad for them to pull. But I mean, it's a good thing to have Presley as, the backup plan, the 1B in that situation. But I don't think there's any way that they're going to mess with Hader. I kind of think he's already a little bit of a head case the way he acted in San Diego. So now that he's got his money, the last thing I would want to do is upset him even further. And potentially, ruin that dynamic for how much how many years did they end up signing him for?
Wasn't it 5 and 95?
5 and 95, yeah. I mean, you don't want at the beginning of this relationship for things to go south because you got cute with pulling him out. Plus, it's a new manager; it's not Dusty anymore. So I don't think that there's any concern in Houston for either Presley or Hader for their roles to be switching. Presley knows what he's going to do. Brewed before them knows what he's going to do, and then Hader will be there to clean things up.
Yeah. The other move, real quick, is Shota Imanaga to the Cubs. When I saw him in the World Baseball Classic, dude was solid. But Japanese pitchers are definitely they're interesting to watch in the first year or two, because that's when teams really don't know much about them. But then these dudes adjust, and let's be real, when these guys adjust, there's a reason why they're in the majors, and because they can hit. But if Imanaga if he's the guy that the Cubs signed, gave him the money, that's going to be a huge move, for Chicago, and that could help them, definitely compete for a division title, and an NL Central that is definitely wide open. But I think that's a move that's one to definitely keep an eye on as the season progresses, because if he's not what Chicago expected, that's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts as well, in terms of how kind of to counteract how the hitters adjust to him.
Yeah, I'm curious to see some of the Korean players that come over. You got Jung-Hoo Lee in San Francisco, and what's the closer's name there? And Matsui in San Diego. I'm kind of curious to see some of the guys that weren't as didn't have the notoriety because of Imanaga and Otani and whatnot, but they in their own right, based off some of what I've read and the reports, like they have distinguished careers in the KBO, and they should come over here and play pretty well right away. So it'll be interesting to see how those moves work out for those teams too. It's not just the biggest names that should have some impact in the upcoming season and moving forward.
Completely agree. What's the most underrated move we've seen so far this year?
I'm gonna go Homer with this one. I think the Chris Sale trade. I think any other year that Chris Sale was traded, it would be a huge deal. I know he's been injury prone since he went to Boston, and it seemingly can't stay healthy no matter what they've done to preserve him. It's been one freak injury after another. But for the Braves to have gotten him for Vaughn Grissom and a Coke and a smile, I think it's a pretty solid move. I mean, even if he's injured, again, this important, I fully expect that he'll spend some time either being managed because he's hurt or straight just put on the IL to preserve him. As long as he's there in September, that's all that really matters. But I love that move. So assuming he's available when they need him most in September, it'll probably be one of the better moves of the offseason.
That hands down is the most underrated move. And I mean, he was one that I think just needed a change of scenery as well, because I mean, let's be real, since he got to Boston, it hasn't gone, as smoothly as I would imagine he had hoped. But man, you go to Atlanta, and it's, I mean, the pressure's not really on you. I mean, you've got some dudes in that rotation, and all you've got to do is just go out and pitch every fifth day. I mean, and you don't have to be Strider. You don't have to be him. Good on, again, Alex Anthopoulos. When he was in Toronto, I absolutely loved it because the dude is he's awesome. And I say it to you all the time. It's like, when the Braves were making the moves there, I told you how much I love AA. I mean, that guy he's not afraid, and that's
best GM in all of baseball.
hands down. He is. Hands down he is. And I was so bummed when Toronto and they parted ways with him, and I'm like, what are you doing? But, again, he gets the job done, and it's a move like that that's going to bring in a Chris Sale who, I mean, a change of scenery, like I said, it's going to do him wonders. And it's only going to make the Braves even better, which is freaking scary. Again, come September, if he's fully healthy and available, good luck, because, now you got to face that lineup in a rotation that has Chris Sale in it. And he's not your ace. Enjoy that. My God.
Well, getting back into the comments, friend of Craft Brewed Sports Biscuit mentions that one of the biggest signings wasn't a player this offseason. He believes there's Craig Counsell to manage the Cubs. He loves Rossi, but saying that he was a bad manager. And that's something that I've heard a few times. Got quite a few close friends that are Cubs fans. And obviously you jump at the chance to get a Craig Counsell as your manager. Pretty much, of all 30 teams would probably take that opportunity, right? I mean, each team has, the upper echelon teams probably have managers that they wouldn't necessarily punt on. But given the opportunity, just about any club in baseball would take a Craig Counsell. What did you think about how that whole thing went down? Because Counsell was essentially a free agent after he stepped down from Milwaukee. Reports were basically that he was headed to New York. The new general manager for the Mets had worked for the Brewers. It's pretty much a done deal. And then all of a sudden, I was the one breaking the news to my Cubs fans, friends, that Counsell had signed in Chicago. Like, how big of a move is that for the NL Central?
I hate the Cubs, obviously. But in all fairness, I think they did David Ross wrong. I disagreed with the way that was handled. Now, granted, you get a chance to get, Craig Counsell, you do it, and I understand. But again, I wasn't a fan of how it went down. It seemed dirty to me. And I think towards the end, I mean, again, I'm not, a huge Cubs fan, but it's one of those things to where I think towards the end, it didn't seem like they did enough to help David Ross out anyway. The team, the Cubs that have all this money, they didn't seemingly go out and do much. And that's what kind of, from the outside.
I don't know. They spent quite a bit of money last offseason.
No, they did, but did they put it in the right spot, though?
I was just going to say, whether or not they spent it correctly is another story, but that's not Craig's fault. Or not Craig. No. That's not Ross's fault.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point. Is like that's okay, why I feel that they didn't, they did him dirty in terms of, yeah, they spent the money, but to me, they didn't do it in the right spots. And at that point, again, it's not fair, to him. Was it time to move on? Probably. And again, if you got a chance to get Craig Counsell, my God, you do it. I mean, I probably, like I said, I would have handled it probably a little different. As opposed to just kicking his ass right out the door and saying, "Oh, hey, Craig, come on in," But they did. But that is going to be a good move. But again, what have they done this offseason, though? Bellinger, okay. Imanaga, okay, but they haven't done more. And to me, they needed to do more.
Are you sure they needed to do more in the NL Central, though? I mean, that division's kind of up for grabs now, isn't it? No more Corbin Burns at the top. The Brewers have taken a step back. The Reds are still finding their way. The Cubs, I don't know what to necessarily expect, despite the addition of Counsell, because last year they were up and down and kind of underperformed, but then overperformed, so not really sure there. And then I know nobody believes in the Pirates, but the Pirates had a nice April and a half last year. I mean, They were in the conversation for longer than they usually are. So, I mean, the NL Central on paper might be the most exciting division just because it's the least predictable when you look at them across all of the divisions. It feels like, at least.
I will give you that, yes, but it's still I don't see with the moves the Cubs have made, they're not going to win the division. I mean, I still think at the where we're sitting right now, I think the Reds are the team to beat with what they have pitching staff wise. And I'm not saying this as a homer because
sounds kind of homerish.
Well, of course it would because why the hell not? But if you know me, I tell like it is, and if the Reds were going to suck, I would tell you they're going to suck. But I think at this point in time, right now, with what the division looks like, no, I think the Reds are the best team top to bottom in the division. I mean, the Cubs, I would say, are second right now. Milwaukee, trading, Corbin Burns was a big whoa. Okay, you got Woodruff back. Whoop-de-doo. You still lost Corbin Burns. So, okay, they're, to me, third best. Cardinals, okay, yeah, they go out and sign all these free agent pitchers, but they're old as hell. So what? I mean, at best, they're at best second place in that division. At best second. And if they're second in the division, then that means the rest of the division is an absolute train wreck. And the Pirates, honestly, have made a bunch of really good moves, like solid moves. I mean, they're not going to win the division by any means, but,
How dare you?
Well, I mean, I don't like the Pirates either.
Eliminating the Pirates in early March.
But here's again, I mean, I'm a huge Paul Skeens guy. Now, I say that because I got a cousin who pitches at Air Force right now, and it was friends with Paul Skeens. So I've got a little bit of a little soft spot for Paul when he was at the Air Force Academy.
Hey, Chris, can you pick that up for me? You gonna get that for me?
No, I'm good.
No, you're not gonna pick up that name you just dropped.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay, cool.
I'm not going to.
Thanks.
I'm not going to.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not. I refuse to do it.
All right, go for it.
I'll drop. I'll drop a couple more if I want to, but that's just kind of. I just don't like the Pirates. I never have. It's Pittsburgh. I'm not a Pittsburgh, but from what they have done, though, I think they have done a good job in bringing in some solid players. So, again, what the Cubs have done with David Ross, getting rid of him and bringing in Craig Counsell, yeah, it's going to, a couple more wins, but they haven't done enough, in my opinion, to thrust themselves to the top of the division. That's just me, though.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about what's gone on in the offseason. Can we talk briefly about the ominous news that's come out of Braves camp today with over the last few days? Acuna had to fly out to California because he may have injured his meniscus. Felt a tweak while playing in a rundown drill earlier in camp. And earlier this evening, we were supposed to hear something. And instead, we got there will be no news announced today because of the time difference. We will be sure to let you know something tomorrow. And the only reason that I would think you would delay some type of news like that is because it is no good news. So I am at a panic level of about a 6 right about now because the season may be dicey before being it. Now, that being said, if you can have this happen, the timing is such that I would rather have it happen in March so that you can readjust and everything. Get a replacement from somewhere. You're not going to replace Ronald Acuna, obviously, but there's a chance to over the next month and hopefully this is just a short-term thing. But for the love of God, Chris, I need there to be good news in the next 48 hours.
Well, if they're pushing it back, that's usually not a good sign. Now, for your sake and for the sake of all of baseball, you obviously don't want a player of that caliber to be out for an extended period of time. That would be, just awful. So that's not, it's not ideal. It is kind of odd that they did push it back, but again, like Steve Phillips always says on the leadoff spot on MLB Network Radio, when you hear that, it's usually not good. So, you had mentioned that because I didn't hear that until you told me just, before the show started. And oof, man, that's rough. But again, if it does happen, something more serious to where he is going to be out an extended period of time, you've got a GM that's going to
I'm getting no sympathy in the chat. Ryan saying, I wish my team was so stacked that I could be a 6 out of 10 panic level when the best player is hurt. Yeah, I realize that.
You'll suck on that one, Scott.
I'm coming from a place of royalty when there's a thing. The first thought was, okay, so how do they fix this? Well, you just move Michael Harris from the number 9, hold the leadoff spot. So, all right, you have a natural leadoff spot replacement there. And, I mean, they can cover right field. And then my second thought was, I mean, they did win the World Series without Ronald Acuna, so there's that. And with a much less stacked offensive team at the time. So it's not the worst thing. This probably takes him out of the 100-win conversation if he has to miss more than a couple weeks. But, I mean, winning 100 games doesn't mean shit if you're not going to win the title like they've done the last 2 years. So I get it. Nobody's giving me any sympathy, but I'm looking at the big picture too. Baseball needs Ronald Acuna, damn it. So, let's all hope for the best.
Dude, you're such an entitled ass. Like, that is just, I mean, come on. Like, that comment was perfect. Yeah, I wish I was, God, 6 out of 10. Yeah,
look at it. I'm getting thoughts and prayers from Mike.
There we go. See, Mike's got it. There we go. He's got you.
And Sarah telling me to check my privilege. Awesome.
Yes.
Right night, making sure that I don't kiss his ass. First of all, I said we might win less than 100 games, so that would be a problem. I mean, you got a level of consistency. You got to make sure you get there.
Dude, you're like the Scott Boras of this podcast here, you ass. Like, you are unbelievable, man.
I haven't held out for money yet. If I was Scott Boras of this podcast, I wouldn't be on it. I'd still be waiting for my payday.
Well, so am I. I mean, this is, we'll see. We'll see how this plays out here, after a couple episodes, whether we get canceled or not, like I said earlier. I mean, shit, we could, we can end up being a Cody Bellinger, or we can end up being a Shohei Ohtani. Who knows? We'll see. With that being said, okay, next, what's the most overrated move we've seen so far? I swear to God, if you take this one, I'm gonna be pissed.
The most overrated move. Since Snell hasn't signed anywhere, it's kind of tough for me to think of who the most.
I'm not talking about overrated player. I'm just talking
about overrated move.
Yeah. Oh, see, I got you thinking here.
Yeah, I don't think there's been anything that jumped out at me as like not impactful. I feel like most of the signings made sense to me. I mean,
not just the sign; it could be a trade as well.
Yeah.
You want me to go with mine?
I mean, you go first so that I don't steal yours, because I have an idea of which one it may be, but it's probably just coming from a total place of hate.
Yes and no. The Juan Soto trade.
Yep. Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that as a guy who doesn't like the Yankees. I just think, and again, that's a great move because he's going to absolutely rake in Yankee Stadium. Hell, he's raking right now in spring training. But it seemed like the move to me, so much hype for it that it's like, to me, it's when it comes to the Yankees, it's just another Yankees deal. You see what I'm saying? Like they're at the point where they're always going to be just the Yankees again, the evil empire. And that, yeah, they haven't been that way in a couple years, but it doesn't change the mentality of baseball fans towards Yankees. And I think, again, the Soto deal it's a great move. I'm not downplaying that at all. Soto is perfect for that lineup. I think the hype I'm looking at is just in terms of the hype, like, oh my God, it's not that big of a deal because it was expected. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think that's kind of where I'm coming from. Maybe I'm wrong with the way I'm explaining it, but it just seems to be too much for something that was, like I said, was expected to happen.
Well, I think it's not. The reason I would think it was overhyped is only because me being the hater that I am, everybody wants to talk about how often or how dangerous that lineup is going to be with Soto and Judge batting, next to each other. And I'm like, how many games are we actually going to see those two together? I mean, I expect Soto to be out there for his usual 140 plus, but Mr. I got a hurt big toe and I'm going to have to manage it the rest of my career. Judge is injury prone. He was injury prone before he got hurt last season. I don't care that he stayed healthy when he hit 62. The man just can't stay healthy. And so I don't expect now that he's made the announcement about the toe that he's going to do anything differently than probably miss you can jot it down for 30 to 40 games already. I do like that Ryan mentioned Sonny Gray, and I'll go a step further. That entire pitching staff that the Cardinals touted as being new and improved, including Sonny Gray, and who else did they bring in there? They brought in, what's his name, from the Orioles. They signed basically 3 C-level pitchers.
Yeah.
And tried to present it as making improvements. Now, the Cardinals were awful last year, and the rotation was a big part of that. But I don't think that the improvements that they made in that rotation are going to equate to many more wins. In fact, I was shocked when the projections came out from, I don't know if it was Vegas or who they had for record-wise, and they had the Cardinals winning the damn division. I don't think there's any chance for that. Like, I got the Cardinals as the 3rd best team, and that's if everything breaks correctly.
Exactly. And here's the thing, that rotation, the guys that they brought in are guys that
nobody else
are consistent. That's all they are. Like right now, like you said, they're C-level pitchers right now. I mean, they got Sonny Gray for 3 years, $75 million. Is Sonny Gray a $25 million a year pitcher? And I love Sonny Gray. I do. I love the dude. I think he is, I think he's a great pitcher, but to me, not for 25 mil a year. Again, the guys that they brought in, it adds stability. Like those guys are going to go out and pitch every 5th day. Like they're not going to miss starts, but if you go out there and you're pitching and you're 10 and 12 on the year, I guess what good is that? You still have a losing record, Exactly.
Matt pointing out that they signed 3 number 3s in the rotation, which is not ideal. And a rotation that was already housing probably at best a 3 with Michaelis and a bunch of guys that had no business pitching otherwise. Like, I mean, if you're trying to be a winning team.
Yeah, you can't look your fan base in the eyes and say, you know what? This is what we're going to do to win this division. Go out and do those moves. It's sort of like, the same lines as the Boston Red Sox. We're going to go full throttle, and all they've done is sputter this entire offseason. It's the same situation, and it's crazy because St. Louis has done more. And that's a hell of a baseball city. And those fans deserve more than what they've gotten so far. Now, I say that as, somebody who I don't like the Cardinals, but, damn it, I respect them. They do a phenomenal job, but to go out there and sign the talent that they did, it's not, again, they can't justify winning the division with that offseason, but maybe I'm a huge dumbass. I don't know, but I ain't seeing it.
What?
I said, I'm not seeing them winning it.
You missed the part where I said cosign when you said maybe I'm a huge dumbass.
Oh, no, I didn't. I missed that part. Funny how that
works. Well, we talked about Skeens. We talked about, getting through the offseason. But how about the fact that when we've tried to watch some of these spring training games, or in the case of Skeens facing Holiday and the game itself featuring 4 number 1 picks from the last 5 drafts, because you had Adley Rutschman in there as well. And yet the game was not televised. Because why? Because MLB. That's why. So while you may not be able to watch your own team play for a bunch of dumb reasons during the regular season, when there's a chance to prop up the game and you have this small window that baseball can showcase its premium talent, both current and incoming, total ball drop.
It's a huge ball drop. total whiskey tango foxtrot moment from MLB. Like you can't tell me that you can't televise some of these games. There you go, Mike. I appreciate that.
Mike saying "fuck the Cardinals" fans.
I respect that. I respect that.
Most Reds fans are more.
Yeah, I respect that, Mike. Well done. But in terms of, and we said it because, I remember I sent you the text on the, the other day with the Skeens versus Holiday matchup. Like, how can nobody watch that? And that was, the negative, press, all over Twitter /X was, it was incredible. Everyone was pissed that nobody could watch that game unless you were literally in the stands. And I said, hell, had I known that, I got a father-in-law who lives down in, Bradenton. I would have, had I known the matchup ahead of time, I'd have flown down there and been like, a quick day trip to watch it. Because that is, again, the amount of talent in that game with Henry Davis. He was the number one pick. You had Jackson Holiday, Adley Rutschman, Paul Skeens, and I want to say, who was the Colton Cowser, I think, was in that as well. And he's a second rounder.
But there were four.
Yeah. Those are four of the number ones. Yeah. And I
was going to say it was Adley, Skeens, Holiday, and there's one more that I can't remember.
Henry Davis.
Henry Davis. That's right. There
and Henry Davis went yard in that game. And it's like, but that's just what puzzled me. And that was Henry Davis went yard off of Corbin Burns. But what a matchup that is. Corbin Burns versus Paul Skeens. Unbelievable. And again, you see preseason games in the NFL, NBA, NHL. Why can't we watch them for Major League Baseball? That is, if you want to grow this game, and there's nothing like spring training. It is awesome. Just the laid back, atmosphere. It's just awesome. And you're not going to sit there and show games for any teams, or obviously they do, but like the majority of your team's games you're not going to show. And then you're not going to show a game that features 4 number 1 draft picks in it. That's just baffling to me. And for as much as I love Major League Baseball, it seems like they are 1 step forward, 2, 3, 4 steps back. And I don't get it. They can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, Matt pointing out that baseball is a sport that should be free to stream always. Too many games, let the people watch. Definitely spring training. It shouldn't be as hard as it is to get a camera on any of these games. Mike pointing out that Major League Baseball dropping the ball on something, shocker. It is a constant refrain when it comes to baseball promoting their game and trying only baseball could take what was one of the most successful seasons that they've had in a while, just from a popularity standpoint, an attendance standpoint, and kind of drop the ball with the offseason and the way things have gone since last season ended. Now, it's not entirely their fault. They don't control the owners and the teams and who signs what and how free agency goes, but you've got that stuff that happened with guys not signing. You've got the fact that, the commissioner's out here saying that he's going to force more rule changes or would like to. And we just got off a season where there were a bunch of rule changes that everybody was in favor of. But it's like, man, hey, can we breathe first? Can we let these changes settle before we end a new one? And then Ryan bringing up the question that's, seemingly been on everyone's mind this entire offseason. Is the Bally Sports thing fixed this year? What's the story with that? Basically, we still don't know. It looked like we were headed towards no more blackouts. Major League Baseball was going to reacquire the rights to all the teams, broadcasting rights within the next few years, but at least this small group of teams that's kind of in limbo, and we were going to be able to have no more blackout restrictions moving forward. But then there was a deal signed with who was it that ended up buying Bally out to stop the sale, which would have reverted the rights back to Major League Baseball. Basically, we're stuck in the same place we were before. There's going to be blackouts this season, and it may be a longer term thing, or we may find that there's more games on Apple Plus. End of the day, you're not going to be able to watch the games like we should, and it's a damn shame because in your local market, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to watch baseball as freely as you want to.
Well, from what I understand, it sounds like the Bally Sports stuff has been taken care of, but for this year, and that's from what I understand. Now, I could be completely off base on that, but what it sounded like from what I heard, that Bally had struck a deal to where they were able to make the payments or partial, maybe not the full payments to some of these teams, but they're out of, I don't want to say the bankruptcy part of it, but they're able to at least get through this year. But after that, it's all up in the air. To me, let Major League Baseball take over the rights, take over the streaming of it, and go from there. It's not hard. It's really not difficult. And
yeah, Mike mentioning that this is likely the last year that the Reds will be on Bally's, and it should be for a handful of other teams. I think Kansas City,
Texas, St. Louis,
Cleveland. Yeah, Atlanta's nearing the end of their deal with Bally's as well. I know. They signed that deal with Bally's, and it's changed hands, I think, twice since then. But they made like a 20-year commitment for a TV deal, and it was horrible money, and they're just now about to end it, I think, in 26 or 27. So at least we'll be able to have, again, most of the league reverted back to most of the teams reverted back to the control of the league. So hopefully I'm optimistic by 2030 that all teams will be, and then my hope is that we'll be able to buy individual team views, and you won't have to pay for the entire thing. You can just watch all of your own team's games if you want to.
That's how it used to be, though.
But
well, I know they because I got neighbors who were Yankees fans, and I know at one point they were able to buy just the Yankees package, but that was, I want to say, just a couple years ago, and they got rid of that. So I don't know if that's gonna, if they'll revert back to that. I mean, if they do, fine. I mean, it's awesome, but again, not showing all the games, it's unfortunate, and I don't understand.
Mike pointing out that we can blame the Dodgers and the Yankees for why Major League Baseball hasn't already taken control, because they make too much and didn't want to share with other teams. Yeah, those big money local revenue contracts that some of these teams have has been kind of what screwed up the entire thing, from the macro level, because those teams were never going to be a part of getting into any type of deal because they had their own thing. They were basically the Notre Dame of Major League Baseball.
Yeah. I mean, the Yankees have Yes Network. I want to say Dodgers, aren't they? I want to say AT&T. I can't remember, but they're so, their media rights are so huge that, it's obvious. I mean, it's a no-brainer for them, in terms of their media package, but it sucks because, again, those are the teams that are going to hold everybody else back. And it's a damn shame, because not being able to showcase some of these players on a nightly basis, you want to grow the game, but you're holding yourself back. And that's unfortunate. And it makes no sense. Now, maybe the fact that we have Ohtani in Los Angeles, not an Angel, but a Dodger, because let's be real, the Dodgers are much bigger than the Angels are. That might help, change things. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, woefully optimistic on that, because maybe I just want to see, these stars showcased like they should be. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that yet from Major League, that commitment from Major League Baseball. When you've got Ohtani and Trout on the same team and they never made the playoffs, I mean, are you freaking kidding me?
Well, I mean, you can't really blame Major League Baseball for that.
No, but it's that kind of stuff, though, that you just it's ridiculous. I mean, they didn't showcase them, and that's them not making the playoffs. It has nothing to do with Major League Baseball, but it's the fact they didn't showcase them like they could have.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And before we wrap up talk about kind of the offseason, there's one more topic that I just think we should touch upon. Matt Barr mentioning then the jersey fiasco. What the fuck, baseball? And if you're unaware, Major League Baseball has spent the last couple of weeks dealing with the fact that their uniforms have changed. Nike changed the way that they made the uniforms and the material, trying to make it more breathable fabric. And Fanatics was the supplier of said jerseys, and instead of getting what people thought would be a welcome change in some aspects, we got the most unwelcome change of them all in see-through pants and weird font on the back of jerseys. So, again, while MLB was able to capitalize on having a good season and gaining all the publicity from that, yet another downtrodden fiasco that was their own doing. And I gotta believe that at some point that this stuff was shown to the higher ups, the people that make the decisions, and either they just didn't give a shit and thought, well, whatever, it's the cheapest, way of doing it. We already got our money, so who cares? Basically, shut up and play to the players. Or they never saw it, and that's just as egregious because they didn't take the time for quality control.
That's a huge problem. Like, I just don't. It's just like you see how this is all played out, and all you can do is shake your head. I mean, you go from, awesome uniforms. Granted, they were, players were complaining that they weren't, they were heavier, performance-wise. And I get that. When you're playing on a hot-ass day in the middle of St. Louis and, in August, I get it. You want a little bit more breathable jersey.
For sure.
Understandable. But then you go from that to these letters that are normal to, micro, and then you got these pants that are see-through. God love Major League Baseball. I mean, again, they just...
Biscuit saying they got the uniforms on
Temu. That's so true. It had to be where they came. I mean, it's just
where they came from. I was thinking Wish.
Yeah, it's exactly. But apparently, I had also read too that Fanatics has been making the uniforms for Major League Baseball since I want to say it was 2007, which that seemed a bit extreme because I didn't think Fanatics was around that long, but apparently they were saying that Fanatics has been making jerseys for a long time already.
I didn't realize that because I thought Majestic was the last jersey provider, and I didn't think they had anything to do with Fanatics.
That's what I mean, like in terms of like the
manufacturing.
Yeah, the manufacturing. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't realize that. Like,
I didn't either, and I just thought that was kind of
their own.
Yeah, I was a little stunned by when I read that, and I'm like, well, okay, maybe.
Mike has a conspiracy theory about the uniforms, though, saying that the owners did it on purpose so that the players would try to include it in the next CBA, and the owners could get the union to bend on something else.
Dude, now my mind's in a pretzel, man.
I was just gonna say that I hadn't thought about that, but that is something that baseball would do.
Oh, they totally would do it. 1,000%. That would be totally in the cards, and I would get it. I would oh man, Mike, dude, what are you doing? I'm all messed up now.
Matt saying that they got the money, the Temu money from the Super Bowl commercials was from MLB blood money. Oh, well,
yeah, and it's funny because now you're seeing some players coming out and defending it, and like you were saying,
Nike athletes though, only Nike.
They're towing the company line on that one. And then you got the other guys out there just blasting them. It's going to get figured out. But then I read something today that the Kansas City Royals have normal lettering on their uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
They were allowed to.
Yeah, so they made a deal with Nike that they didn't have to change the lettering, and they were able to keep the old style uniforms.
Good on Kansas City.
I have no idea what the conditions were or how they were able to get
all teams. The Royals, like, really? Hey, you know what? That's it's going to be those jerseys. They're going to carry them to an AL Central win. I respect it. Good for them.
It's a lot of faith you're placing in the AL Central Royals.
Really?
To get it.
Well, I mean, here, let's get to it. Like, we're gonna over the next couple episodes, we'll break down, the divisions coming up and everything like that. But let's be real, Scott. The AL Central sucks.
Yeah,
come on,
terrible.
Yeah. So and the Royals have made the moves. It's that they could easily win that division
off season. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't tell me that. Don't sit there and dismiss the Kansas City Royals like that. We're not going to do that tonight.
That's fine.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Thank you. I appreciate it.
What do you want to talk local baseball?
Yeah, let's do that. We'll touch on some little college ball here. We've got some programs in the tri-state area that play big time baseball. You have Cincinnati in the Big 12. The Big 12 is one of the top conferences in all of college. College sports. It's obviously a Power 5, but in terms of college baseball, the Big 12 is a premier conference. And then you have NKU, who plays in the Horizon League. NKU is no joke. Xavier in the Big East. Xavier continues to, they will go and play the big dogs each and every week, and they will, they'll shock some teams. Dayton in the A10, they've made a couple, they made some waves earlier this year. And then you have Miami in the MAC. Miami's, they've played some big name teams so far. But just quickly, I mean, in this tri-state baseball report here, I'm kind of going to talk, a little college ball real quick. And then also when the high school season starts up, talk a little high school baseball. Before that season starts, again, if you get a chance to check out some high school baseball, do it. There is a lot of elite talent in this area that are, some of this talent is most likely going to be drafted in this year's draft and even in the 2025 draft. And you got some dudes that are going to be going to play high-level D1 baseball, next year and the year after that. So make sure you check it out. But in terms of some college ball here, the Cincinnati Bearcats, first year in the Big 12. They are 7-5 right now. They are coming off of a series against Northern Illinois where they took 3 of 4 at home in Cincinnati. UC has, in terms of the season so far, they've played Jacksonville, which, they lost 2 of those games. They've played NKU. They played Ball State, Illinois, Xavier, Oakland. Their schedule so far hasn't been too strong. They did play Coastal Carolina. That is a team that I'm a huge fan of. And Coastal absolutely walloped them 25-2, and that was in Conway, South Carolina. But UC right now, 7-5. They do play Akron midweek in Cincinnati before they head to Manhattan, Kansas to take on Kansas State in their first Big 12 series. So that is one to watch as well. NKU on the Horizon League, like I said, they're 4-7. They have played Tennessee Martin. They've played Georgia, Morehead State, Cincinnati, but they made history this past weekend. They took 2 or 3 from Missouri from the SEC. That's the first time they have ever taken a series against a Power 5 team, and they did it on the road in Columbia, which is awesome. And NKU, my alma mater, so I'm going to be a little pumped up about that. They continue to do, a good job, in what we've seen so far from them. They did go on the road and lose 3 straight to Georgia. Georgia is a great, they're a great team in the SEC as well. But then going and rebounding and taking 2 or 3 from Missouri is awesome. So congrats to the Norse for that. Xavier, again, like I said, they're a team that they don't care. They will play anybody, anytime.
You goddamn right we will.
Hey, you watch your mouth, man. You watch your mouth.
Hey, I'm just here to cheer on X.
That's this is this is a local segment. I got to be nice, even though I'm not a Xavier guy. But Xavier started off the season taking on 10th ranked Clemson. Clemson is, they are a solid program in the ACC. They did lose all 3 to start, but then they went on the road and faced Louisville. Louisville is a premier program in the ACC, and beat them 9-1. Good on Xavier. Again, like I said, they will play anybody anytime. They did, they took 2 or 3 from Lipscomb. Then they beat UC in a crazy back and forth game. That was at Xavier. That was an incredible game. If you get a chance, go watch that. You can watch that on ESPN Plus. That was from Tuesday the 27th. So that's an entertaining baseball game. They just went to Fort Myers and took on Florida Gulf Coast. where they took 2 of 3 in that series. But then now they face midweek Louisiana Tech, a team that is undefeated, I believe. Louisiana Tech is coming off of a tournament win this past weekend. I want to say it was the Battle at the Ballpark tournament. Louisiana Tech is no joke, and Xavier's got them for 2 before heading to LSU this weekend to take on the LSU Tigers, the defending national champions from Alex Box Stadium. That is going to be that series is going to be all on ESPN Plus this weekend and SEC Plus, I think, as well. So that is a series that you don't want to miss either.
Matt wants to know who wins, a college all-star team using metal bats or the worst team in Major League Baseball.
Oh, man.
Unlike the college versus NFL, worst team in NFL beating or losing to Alabama, I think this question actually has merit. Like, this could actually be an interesting matchup if you had the very worst team. But I don't know. I mean, most major league pitching is so good that even the best major league or the best college hitters, unless they were all on one team and all having their very best day, like, I don't even know how that would stack up, but I would love to see that matchup.
That would be awesome. And I love Miami and Dayton. Good on you guys, but I'll touch on you guys next week because I'm more intrigued with this question than what I am with with those two teams. Man, that is
Dayton. You're good.
What's that?
I said nobody gives a shit about Dayton. You're good.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I don't really care either. I'll give Miami because I do like Miami, but All-Star. Oh man, there's some. Like I said, there's some dudes. I mean, like last year, Dylan Cruz from LSU, dude, he can step in right now. I mean, there's a good chance you might see him, this year with Washington. You've got guys like Wyatt Langford, who is now with Texas. You'll see Wyatt Langford this year for the Rangers. Dude, then you've got, some of the pitching staff. Luke Holman this year with LSU is now their ace. Luke Holman taking over, almost has identical stats as Paul Skeens did last year through the first couple games, or first couple starts, I should say. Man, that's a good question. This, like you were saying with the NFL, that's there's no comparison there. You can't do it. But with baseball, you might see something there.
Especially with college kids still being able to play with metal bats.
And the talent-wise, too. Like I said, there's some pitchers out there. Oh, some of these college pitchers, like I said, can flat out deal. Hagen Smith from Arkansas, he just struck out 17 against Oregon State. Was it last weekend, I want to say. Guys like that, like I said, Luke Holman, Trey Yusevich from East Carolina. Dude, there's some dudes out there that can chuck it. And there's some dudes out there. Tommy Tanks can hit with LSU. Oh, man. That's a good one. Major League Baseball, yeah, they might win that one, but that's going to be a lot closer than what you would think. That's a good one. That's a great question. I like that. Man, I like that. Well, Scott, you want to move on to one of the most amazing teams that we've seen coming out, like in terms of branding and everything like that?
Absolutely, because Mike and I have always discussed whenever we've had the opportunity how amazing minor league baseball hats are and minor league branding. They do it better than just about anybody else in the sporting game. Talk about the most recent find that you were able to acquire.
Yes. This team is the Danville Dairy Daddies. They play, I got to look it up here real quick. I want to say it's they play in a league in Virginia. I want to say, I want to make sure I give them the right credit here. Let's see. Oh, I just had it up. Danville Dairy Daddies. Let's see. Yeah, they're in the Old North State League this summer. They play on the Field of Creams.
The Field of Creams.
The Field of Creams. And it is literally... They are the second team of the Danville Otterbots. So they are. It appears to me it's a summer college team, and they have rebranded. You'll see a lot of like college teams will do. Yes, bam. That is McCreamy. That is their mascot, and that is unbelievable. I mean,
so for those of you listening, I just popped up a picture of the Danville Dairy Daddies have released a pink hat, or a pink brimmed hat rather, but with a cow logo. It is fantastic. Again, minor league baseball at its finest.
If you get a chance, literally go on their Twitter account, and I mean, just scroll through it. You are in for just an abundance of entertainment. I mean, they had one yesterday with it being Sunday, obviously the day of our Lord. Forgive me. I can't say this without laughing. Forgive me, Father, for I have skimmed. Hashtag get milked. It is, dude, it is unbelievable. I mean,
Mike's saying that is utterly amazing.
It's, I mean, and I mean, the people responding to it, it's amazing. Like, peace be with you. Like, I mean, it's just, it's awesome. And, they minor league teams, like you were saying, Scott, you and Mike have discussed it before. There's nothing better than a minor league team. And even minor league hockey does a great job as well. But the way they brand their teams, nothing short of incredible. And this one, and I mean, their merchandise line it goes by how creamy are you? It goes from skim to 1%, 2%, and what is it? I can't read that. Let's see. Yeah, okay, whole, creamy, which is double XL, and then extra creamy, which is a triple X. I mean, you can't think it. You can't put this together any better. And I went on to try and get a hat, and they sold out literally when I text you, like when I first noticed it, and I text you and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to get me a hat. I went on to get it, sold out. And I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. All I wanted was a Danville Dairy Daddy's hat. And then I went back on the next morning and there were a couple available and I was like, bam. So I ended up getting a trucker hat, which is on its way. So hopefully by next show, yeah, I will be rocking a Danville Dairy Daddy's trucker cap because they might be up there as one of my favorite teams ever.
Matt bringing up that where he's at in D.C., just outside of D.C. in Richmond, the Flying Squirrels have two mascots. There's one male, Nutsy, and a female, Natasha. And he couldn't make that up if he tried. Again, minor league baseball is amazing when it comes to marketing their teams and trying to get publicity any way they can. They do a great job of it.
Oh, they do. And this one, like I said, this one has taken the baseball world by storm. And their hashtag is get milked. And I mean, it's awesome. And there was one they were showing, I want to say it was Cade Stover. So the tight end from Ohio State. There was a tweet from Barstool, and it was NFL draft prospect tight end Cade Stover massages cows to strengthen his hands. Well, naturally, Danville gets a hold of that and says Cade might be taking hashtag get milked a little too far. And I'm like whoever their social media, person is, that person needs a raise. And whoever thought of this brand, I mean, you are legendary. See what I did there? Legendary. Yes. Wow. Honestly, I did not mean to do that, but it worked out.
Well, before we wrap things up, Mike wants to know what's better, the minor league mascots or the minor league promotion nights? I'm going to go with mascots because, again, they change so frequently. They do special editions of these mascots where they only change for a certain amount of time. The logos, anytime there's an angry, inanimate object that becomes some type of logo for a baseball team, it's awesome. So while the promotional nights are fun, I think the everlasting special edition or short-term rebranding of some of these teams is cream of the crop. See what I did there?
Oh, just piss right off. I mean, God, this is going to be, oh, damn it. Like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do this show anymore. This is going to be a long.
Well, that's a perfect. I think that's a perfect way to end it.
It is, yeah, that is. No, in all seriousness, this was awesome, Scott. I'm so glad we're doing this. This is going to be because we're only going to get better, and that's saying something. Like I said,
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say there'll be plenty more fun to be had to get our feet wet and get past the offseason once we get into actual games being played and stories being told for the weeks of baseball, and we get out of non-televised spring training. We'll hit our stride and be ready to roll.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. So, yeah, that'll wrap it up. This lovely debut episode of Backwards K Baseball. Again, truly appreciate you guys. Make sure you follow us on Backwards K B-Ball. That's on Instagram and X. I'm trying to think. You can follow me on X at I am Chris Asbrock or at IS Cincy. Other than that, Scott, where can people find you? The people that don't know you, that is.
Yeah, I was gonna say the people that don't know, I'm on Craft Brewed Sports. You can follow us on Twitter at Craft B Sports. You can find us wherever you find all your fine podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, everything. We got a great group going on the Facebook group. Join that. We talk anything and everything. But if you want to talk baseball, you can always reach out to either one of us anytime. Love to talk baseball, here to talk baseball. And that's what we're going to do from here on out.
Heck yeah. And it's something I was thinking too. We might even do some some Twitter spaces or whatever. That might be something to look into. So that way, get more, audience participation.
On off days when we're not recording on Mondays.
Yeah, just kind of something happens, do something like that. And but we're looking to get some guests on here as well. Get some get some good quality content. So again, thank you guys so much.
Aren't ours.
Well, that's because obviously I got a face for radio, so I apologize for everyone who had to watch it, but it is what it is.
Speak for yourself, my friend. Speak for yourself.
Yeah, you entitled ass again. Exactly.
Shooting for 100 wins, my man. Shooting for 100 wins.
Love it. Well, Scott, thanks, my man. I appreciate it. It was awesome. This was so much fun.
Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you tuning in. This has been Backwards K Baseball. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you again next week. For Chris, I'm Scott. We'll see ya.
See ya.